All righty. Welcome, everybody, to the Hobby CNC with Dave show. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. Looks like we got a pretty good little crowd over there already tonight. So, should be a fun show. I'm really looking forward to this one. I mentioned, I've mentioned probably a couple of times, that I've got the Revolution rotary axis machine, and I've been playing around with that, having a blast playing around with that thing. So I wanted to have Bob of BobsCNC come back on and talk about the Revolution and also this new software suite that he's been working on. And he's got it available for download on the website there. So I wanted to have him back on to talk about that. So please welcome tonight Mr. Bob Wood, and he brought his best friend Keith. How you doing, guys? Uh-oh, I don't hear any sound. I don't hear any sound.
How about that?
There we go.
We're technically challenged.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? I forgot to mention, and I should tell people this, but whenever I play the intro, StreamYard automatically mutes your mic and then will automatically unmute it when the video stops.
Huh.
And you probably hit the mute button, didn't you?
I think when we were moving it around.
Oh, okay.
It's so easy to hit on the back, but
yeah, it is.
That's Keith's fault. That's
Yeah, we're gonna blame Keith for that.
That's how we ride. Yeah, it's Keith's fault.
All right. Well, welcome, guys. I'm so happy to have you back, Bob, and I'm excited to meet Keith too, because for those of you that may not know this, but we talked a little bit. What was it, Thursday? I guess we did kind of a tech check thing, and I got to meet Keith then, and I feel like I know him already because I've kind of been binge watching the Shop Talk with Bob thing. So I'm back onto the really old ones now.
I feel bad.
So anyway, let's talk about this revolution that's going on here. Take us back to the beginning. I think one of the earliest videos, I think when you were announcing it, it was like, I think YouTube says it was 10 months ago or something. So this is kind of a new thing, right?
Yeah, it's a fairly new product. So, I would love, when I got into CNCs, I'd love to have a 5-axis one. And building a 5-axis one's not really, it's not trivial, but it's doable, right? But the problem is there's no software. And actually, VCarve a long time ago, you couldn't get the rotary functions except for in the Pro or the Aspire. And now it's all the way down to the desktop, right? And even that is a rotary software, it's not really a true 4th axis, right? So it's still
it's just the wrapping.
Yeah, it's a wrapping software. So the only true, or not even true, but one of them is Des Proto. Nice guy, and I like his software, but it's an indexer, right? So I've always hesitated to do a rotating axis, even though I think they're really cool. But I think it was Keith that was encouraged me. Let's try it. Let's do it. Let's get it out there. And we were, pretty excited about doing it. John Havens came on board, and he helped me with the design a little bit. So we put it out there, and it hasn't taken off like I had hoped, because I think they're really an awesome machine. But it's slowly picking up as people understand it. But it's a little bit more difficult to understand if you're new to CNC, right? Than XYZ. Everybody understands left, right, forward, backwards, and up and down. But yeah, so we they do.
It took me a while.
Okay, well,
yeah,
most everybody. But the rotating one definitely can be troublesome for setting it up. And then, of course, if there's no software, it doesn't matter how cool your machine is. But since Vectric put that to the desktop, we got started on it and released it. If you go to our Facebook group, the Revolution, it's a closed group, but you can ask the questions to join. You'll see we have some customers that make some pretty cool stuff with them, and actually you've made some pretty cool stuff, or the Einstein thing. And I see you use the automatic rounding feature on the basic.
Yeah, and I want to make sure we talk about that tonight, and have you, I know you're prepared to screen share stuff, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to tell you that is, well, I don't know. I guess it's just one of my favorite things because it's so easy to use. It's just super, super easy. And for those of you who don't know, it's in the basic sender. I forget. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but it's just really easy to use. And even if you mess up the first time or you miscalculate, because I'm an inch guy, that's how my brain works, in inches. So I about wore my phone out this past weekend trying to convert, inches to millimeters and stuff with the little calculator. But it's really easy to sit there and just redo it. And in fact, I'll talk about something I was doing here earlier, and I messed it up because I programmed the stupid thing in inches and not millimeters. So, it just starts off making a big groove around the thing. So I had to go back, and I thought, well, I can salvage that cylinder that I made. All I got to do is come back and do a new rounding toolpath or rounding wizard and set it up and clean it off again. So I did it, and of course I got it to work the second time. Nothing fancy, but I was showing.
Oh,
I've now got it cut off the end here because I should have moved it over a little bit. But what I wanted to do, this was a test, not to try to do anything fancy, but I saw where the files that you could select for the cam, one of them, it just said image. So I thought, that's interesting. Let me see how that works. So I went to your website, did a screen grab, and then cropped the BobsCNC. So it was just a PN. Let's see, now I think it was a JPEG I saved it as, and then brought that in, and it's like, boom, it works. It put the outlines in there. So that is all from just using that little, and it's on here twice. The other side's got a knot right there where you can't see it as well.
Yeah, it hurts when that happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
That's Keith's side.
Yeah, that's Keith's side. The one
trying to keep these things secret.
But other than that, I haven't really played around with the cam, the basic cam that much. And I know we'll talk about that some tonight too. But I'm having a blast just trying to figure, because this is kind of new stuff for me. I'm an old Mach 3 user. Always done the, do it yourself or the plug and play controllers that somebody else makes. And
yeah, I was a Linux guy because I'm too cheap to buy Mach. Back in the day when you had, and for a while I helped people. I'd get their old computers and fix them up with Windows 98 and give them away, right? But so I always had extra computers around. So, and they always had a parallel port, right? So, I had computers for every CNC in the shop. But as soon as those started going away, or, you don't want that great big desktop in your shop getting, because they get dusty. They suck up the dust pretty bad. So I had to find something different. And Sonny is the lead developer of the gerbil firmware, and the man is a genius. I mean, to take an 8-bit processor and pull off the gerbil firmware the way that he did is just completely amazing. And it makes the gerbil doable. And, credits, you can buy the Arduino Uno now for like $13, right? You can control your CNC. So,
yeah, I showed you this the other day, I think, is I've got, let me hit this back like this, I guess. I got just an Arduino and then the shield that I can plug in here in the office just to kind of help me play around and learn that software a little bit. But it's amazing that you can run the whole thing with this little dinky thing right here.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, they only hold 2 amps per phase, right? So you can't use the bigger stepper motors.
Right.
Offline drivers, but you have to get offline drivers anyway. So
exactly. Yeah. So all right. So what And again, getting back to the revolution, what is the what was the idea behind that? Because I don't know of anybody else that's making like a standalone rotary machine like that.
Yeah, so like if you have one on your regular CNC, you can set up a rotating axis, but the setup it takes as long as the project sometimes. And I'm exaggerating, but you know how it is. You have to get that headstock and the tailstock perfectly lined up, and then so you get a job set up, and oh crud, now I've got to go back to another job, and you don't have room, so you have to pull it back off. So the idea was to have a standalone machine that would, and then with the durable firmware, you could only do 3 axis. That was another scary part for me, because I had to write that, right? I went into all the code and changed all the Y's to A's, and then figured out, oh, I got a units problem, right? Because of inches and millimeters. And so I had that was a fun part to do. But yeah, I mean, I think, was it you that came up with the longboard chuck? You showed me the picture of it, because that was a hard, it's like, how am I going to get a chuck, because we're laser cut parts? And the Longworth was like, hey, that solved that problem. Right?
I'll take credit, but I didn't do it.
Well, you didn't design it, but I think you're the one that showed me the picture.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, somebody showed me a picture.
Missed your chance,
It
Keith.
wasn't for your picture, May. Yeah, I'm not going to read about it.
No.
Yeah, you have to show me the picture.
Okay.
Keith reads everything. I look at the pictures.
Yeah, and speaking of the Longworth chuck, the when I did this little Albert thing, the little bust, let me back up a little bit. First thing I did is, when I unboxed it, is put all the parts out on my little workbench there, got some spray poly, and was coating everything a little bit. And there were so many dadgum parts. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts.
Who designed that thing anyway? There's
we get a lot of that. How many screws could you possibly put in that? Yeah.
Well, there's probably half of them on my garage floor out there. But
there's 92 wood pieces, and there's 853 pieces of hardware that go into it.
Okay. Well, there you go.
You took the time to count that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It only took a few minutes.
Yeah.
But anyway,
you email me that, we can post that somewhere.
Yeah, I sprayed all the parts and everything, and just to make sure I didn't get stuff mixed up, because there were so many parts that look similar but really aren't. So I thought, well, let me take all the parts that came out of the chuck accessory box, and I put those back in that box, and I set it down underneath something, and I kind of forgot about them. So, I used the Longworth chuck when I and of course you can see how little this is.
Right.
And because the way you stick the thing all the way into the Longworth chuck, you lose that first couple inches because anyway. So then I thought, well, I should, I think it was Ryan sent me a picture, and he says, hey, how does this go, or something like that. And I go, I don't know. I forgot about them. I hadn't even opened that box back up. So I got those back out, put all that stuff back together. And then when I saw how I think you guys call it the quick chuck that works with this little plate here, I thought, yeah, that's the ticket right there. So I put all that in, and once you go to the trouble, because that Longworth chuck's kind of a pain in the rear,
it is, yeah,
because you got to tighten one and then spin it around, and the whole time trying to hold it closed. And so once I got all that tightened up really good to expand those rubber bumpers or whatever they're called to where it would hold that quick chuck in there, I thought, okay, I'm done. That thing's staying in there. So then I got the right idea to, instead of screwing this on, let me switch this a little bigger.
I saw that. I saw your video on that where you used the hot glue.
Yeah, I just used some, I don't know if you can pick that up, but I just marked my center and poked a little divot there, and then used a nail to get this centered, and then just used my little bitty hot glue gun. And I figure I can probably pull these back off, cut that hot glue off and be able to not waste these, because I think you put like 3 or 4 of them in there, I think.
Yeah, I think
But,
4 of them come with the kit. So
but I don't know how long they'll last because they fit really snug. So, I figure you might mess one up or something trying to get it back off there. But that works great at holding that stuff on there, especially when you pull the tailstock up to the other end. I felt like it was way more solid what I ran that way than the other way.
yeah,
Although I didn't have any trouble with the other one. It's just I don't know. It feels good and solid when you do that little
yeah,
quick
that was
check.
another guy on our team, Jonathan. We have John, Jonathan, and myself. And Jonathan came up with that. It was one of his first projects was this accessory kit. And that's all we use. We have the chuck on one of ours, that he made, and then the quick release or the quick, what do you call it? Quick connect.
Yeah. And I like it because, like I said, you lose that 2 inches anyway. So now you don't think about it. Now you can just put your piece right up near the edge,
Right.
where that's going to go. So I like that much better.
It was really cool when we started to design it because, we had the gantry from the Evolution. So we said, we just need a bottom and a couple of sides, right? And some way to rotate it around. So the Z, the Y, and the gantry, if you will, the frame was already designed. So we just really had to do the bottom and the 2 sides. You could take that gantry and put it on the Evolution. It's the same part.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's move on and talk about the software a little bit because I've got a whole list of questions here, and most of them are about the software.
No, this is not where I come in. In fact, I feel I have to leave. Go ahead.
Well, I do have some questions for you, Keith.
Well, we'll hang on to those.
Okay. Well, we'll catch those here at the end here. We'll give you a chance to think about them. But let's talk about the software now. Just if you can, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but what would be the big feature differences between the UGS that everybody knows and loves, the main UGS, and your basic sender? What's
Actually, right now they're probably, I don't want to say equivalent because the UGS actually has like a start from here feature that we don't have yet that I'll be working on. They're programmed differently. The UGS has, if you do not operate it correctly, and the correct way would be when you're done with it, hit disconnect before you unplug your USB and close it. But if you're, like so many of us are in today's world, bad with computers, just close the CRUD, pull the stuff out later, it will corrupt itself. And so we have this, it's just, you got to go clear the configuration files and you can start it up again. Right. And it'll fix itself. But the UGS platform is a really good program for folks that understand CNCs and understand all the ins and outs of what they're doing. It's got a lot of features that are built into it that the normal user does not use. So I would say probably 90%, 95% of our customers are brand new to CNC.
And that might be a little bit high.
Okay.
Anywhere 80 to 90, yeah.
So we wanted to make something that was simple enough that you couldn't get yourself into trouble. For instance, you'll notice in both the sender and the cam, you can't change the windows around. You can't slide them around. In UGS, you can put them where you want them, which is cool, right? Because you can make your own interface. But if you lose them and you don't know how to get them back, then you got to call tech support and say, hey, what do I do wrong? And I got to say, hey, hit Windows, reset Windows, right? The other thing is, and Will Winder is the one of the authors of the Universal G-Code Sender, and he wrote an A-axis when I requested it, but he was working on it already. But he had to keep it generic for all machines, right? So he couldn't put in features that were for our machine, which is just a wrapping axis. He was going full out for the A-axis. So there were some issues with that, and some of the issues were with the software, and then some of them were with the controllers. So he decided to go with the ESP32 setup, which is a 6-axis gerbil controller, right? And our Revolution really is just gerbil that was modified by me. So I had to figure out how to make mine work with his, and it does in millimeters only right now. So I'm hoping to be able to change that for the Vectric users and for the basic cam users to be able to work in inches as well. But as far as features go, I would say they're both pretty stable. Again, I want to make sure that everybody understands is we started off with the open builds because it had a good reputation and it was open source. Just modified it to make it simple and added features for our customers. And I can show you those at some point. But as far as major differences, I think that's it. I mean, theirs is actually more customizable. Is that how you say that?
That'd be close.
Yeah, and it's got a lot more features. But with that, if you don't understand those features, then you can get yourself into trouble. So for yourself, you might stick with universal or the universal G-code sender because you like all the extra features. But
Well, I can probably count the number of times that I've used universal G-code sender on one hand because,
Yeah.
again, I'm a Mach 3 guy, and I used that when I did this one
right,
because I think that was the same day you had put out the other stuff, and I went up there and got it, but I thought, well, I'm not going to try to, I want to try to run this, and I know enough about the other one to be dangerous, so I'll use that for that one. And then I'll, then everything else from here on out, I'll try to use the basic sender.
Well, there's lots of senders out there, and there's easel, right, which will do it. The issue with easel is not the software itself; it's just that they really built it for their machines, and so I don't know if on theirs or not if it actually shows you the error codes. But if you hook your machine up to it, it won't give you like the alarm 2 or alarm 1. It just stops, right? So that's kind of frustrating. G Sender is out there, and I think it's pretty popular. Universal G-code sender is probably the most popular. And then the Open Builds has a really good reputation. So, hopefully we'll get ours out there and it'll have a good reputation, and we'll get to add some advanced features. And I really would like the input on that. I'll show people tonight where they can input to say what features they would like. One thing,
I guess we really should mention that this is still kind of a beta thing,
Yes.
right? It's an ongoing thing. You're going to be adding features and getting feedback from customers and stuff like that on. So it is what it is right now. So
yeah, and it's never going to be Vectric software. I mean, that's not really the intent. And, they have, teams, and they also, have light years of experience that we don't have. It's not even going to be an Estelchem, which is one of my favorites. It's really meant for the beginner to get started. And then, of course, the basic sender, I want to add the units to it so that people can also do the inches, but it's got half of that built into it already. But I want to, whatever our customer base says that they need, that's for a simple G-code sender and a simple CAM program, then we'll try to add that. So
okay, so is there a place on their website where people can put in a feature request, or
not on the website, but on the GitHub? If I can share my screen or your screen. So this is the GitHub for all of the stuff that I work on. You can see that I have the ESP32 and the other stuff that I'm in. But let's just say that we go to Sender right here. It will show you all the codes so that you can go see it if you want to, if you're that kind of person. But you can it's under issues, but it really isn't issues. You can just create a new issue, and you can say, I either want to do a bug report or a feature request, right? And then we can get, I'll start getting a list and, see who I guess will take a poll, right? Obviously, the squeaky wheel will get the grease, right? But you could also email the help desk and say, hey, Bob, I'd really think it's cool if it does this, or something else. But that's, it's the GitHub. R.L. Wood Jr. is actually just my old email, but that's the GitHub I've had for a long time, so I just kept it that way. But yeah, you can go there and look at all of the stuff I'm doing. The other thing that you can do is you can see all the changes that I made to the gerbil firmware. So all of the stuff and all of the changes that we've made are there. So all of our stuff, we're really trying to keep it open source because I really do like the open source community. So.
Okay, now even before you get feature requests and feedback from customers and stuff, have you already kind of thought about some features that you're wanting to put in there, and you're like, well, I'll get that in there, but I'm going to go ahead and put it up there right now and let people have it because it's good enough to get people started?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think it would kick off as well as it has. We started, we put it on our Facebook group, and I think you've helped me a lot with it as well. With the guys that are listening to what you're talking about. But it's gotten a little popular a little faster than I thought. I mean, Keith has been working on a manual. How far are you along with that?
I'm almost done.
Okay. But, we want to get that published on just basically how to use it and the features, right? And then as we make revs. But yeah, there's a lot of features I would like to add. The biggest one I think right now would be a start from here, right? A lot of people like mess up or they break a bit or, they want to stop for dinner because we don't ever recommend that you leave them running unattended.
That was one of my questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there a way to, again, I'm an old Mach 3 user. So, you can do, you could stop and say, I'm tired. I'm going in, eat supper and shut the whole thing down and come back the next day and go right. As long as you know what line number it was you left off, you can go right to it and start right where you left off.
Yep. And
I thought, well, if I do have some trouble with the Arduino, I'm like, I don't know if you can do it. And if you can, I don't know how to do it. So,
yeah. Well, we'll try to make that clear once I've got it figured out. I think how I want to write the code. I just haven't had time to do it yet. That would be one thing though, that universal G-code sender has already, right? You can do that. So that's definitely a feature that we would like to have. In the basic cam, I've already done this. I've already changed it so you can go from inches to millimeters. It's not a good live swap though. So if you start in millimeters, you probably ought to stay there because it doesn't actually scale anything, right?
Yeah, I can vouch for that.
Okay. But I thought about actually moving that button into the setup so that, you can either set one or the other. But I think, for the most part, people will be in one or the other. They won't be switching back and forth.
Yeah. See, I should have, I should have been a little more aware, I guess, because when you use the rounding wizard, you don't have the option.
Not yet.
It's all millimeters. So that should have kicked in, but for some reason it didn't because I was still taking the inch measurements that I wanted and converting them to millimeters. And then of course everything was all messed up, but
well, eventually I'll get the probe and the other wizards in so that you can select, what you want there. But you'd think that, well, how hard can it be? You just go through the code and hit divide by 25.4 or multiply by, right? But it's a little bit more difficult in the fact that, you actually have to change all those little MMs to inch. And then, you have to know where you're at so you don't double multiply or double divide. So, but we'll get there.
Okay. All righty. Do you want to talk about, you just mentioned the probe thing. You want to talk about how you set the Z for,
sure.
with the Revolution?
Oh, with the Revolution. Well, I should let you talk about that.
Well, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I think I am.
Actually, I had a phone conversation with a guy, I think it was yesterday or maybe today. And again, this is what makes the Revolution a little bit more difficult. So Vectric recommends that you zero at the center line, right? Which makes sense, right? It's right where the center line is of the chuck versus the tailstock, that's axis. The problem is when you have a stock in there, you can't really drag your bit down there and zero it, right? So we give you a little block. It's 50.8 or 2 inches tall. Yep, there you go. And you set that on the tailstock, and then you bring the bit down, and then you, instead of 0 the Z there, you set it to 50.8 inches. So it's an offset 0, right? So therefore, if you actually took the workpiece out and jogged down, 0 would be where your axis is. So it's really an offset 0. So you have to drag over to the tailstock or jog over there, which is kind of a pain. But if you look at the headstock side, you don't have a place that you can get a good reference from. So kind of had to do it that way. So you drag it over there to where your tailstock is, set your 0. But once you're done with that bit, you're done, right? You don't need to do it anymore.
The only trick is, at least unless I did something wrong, you almost need to have your computer close enough to where you can hold this with one hand and bring it down with the other. And I have my laptop too far away so that I wouldn't get dust in it. And so I would hit it down and I'd bring this over and I go, no, I need to come down a little more. So I kept wearing a path back and forth to the laptop to do it. But you had 2 of these in the kit, and I thought, well, it says gauge on there, so and then I think there's a picture I saw somewhere, or maybe I saw you do it in one of your shop talks or something. But I remembered seeing you or Keith one going to the thing and putting 50.8 after you touched it off there. I think, unless I saw
videos, and I think Keith wrote a setup guide or a getting started, because you have to download the post processor from vCarve and that kind of thing too. But
okay,
now if you get you a Raspberry Pi like Ryan has, then you could leave that computer close to the CNC.
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, that's what I want to do next. And actually, somebody else was in the comments asking about that too, about setting up the basic sender to work with the Raspberry Pi. I think there's something on your GitHub, right?
Yeah, share screen again, Dave, if you would.
Oh, sure.
If you go back to the sender, and then you go to the wiki. It's like the only article there. There you go. There's my instructions. It's really, they're not really mine. They're from Open Builds, but it's really pretty simple. It has a script that it runs. So this line, if you just type this in after you do the config, then it works. I mean, just right out of the box, it works. I cannot get the cam to work though at this point. But the basic sender, I've got it on mine already, so on my Raspberry Pi.
Okay, all right. And that was Clyde that was asking about that. So, Clyde, if you're out there you go. Yeah, and I also noticed too that you talked about setting the 0 at the center line of the axis. You don't really have any other way to do it, because when you use the rounding wizard, it's figuring on going from that center line.
Yes. Now, Vectric, you can actually do it both ways. You can do it from the surface or the center line. And had another customer that we were going back and forth today. He doesn't like doing it from the center line. He wants to do it from the surface. Well, here's the problem. It's not the problem with the G code, because the G code will run because it doesn't know the difference. But the graphics on the screen has to know that, or it doesn't render the G code properly. So I got to figure out how to create what diameter are you using, if you run it from the 0 or not, in the Vectric post processor, so that I can program that into the graphics so that it comes out right.
Yeah. Now, pretty much all the Rotary stuff I've done up until I got the Revolution was with vCarve Pro, and I've used it both ways. But to me anyway, once you do it from the center line, you realize that that's the way you should really do it.
Right.
Because that seems to work best. Let's see.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you don't have it in the chuck perfectly centered and stuff like that, you can throw it all off if you're trying to go off the surface.
Well, but theoretically, I mean, if you make a cylinder that's 3 inches in diameter, and you
Right.
you know put it down to the surface, and that's where your G code starts, and you just set that at 0, it's the same difference. But if you're doing anything fancy, you know, with a rough cut and a final cut, you can lose it pretty fast, right? Where it is, because your error is actually doubled, right? Because it's radius and you're cutting a diameter. So if you're 1 millimeter off, you're cutting 2 millimeters short. So I think I said that right. I said that right.
Okay, so you mentioned the probe then. So I see the button in there for it, but it's not active yet, right there.
For the button for what?
For the
For
in
the
the sender, will it be active at all for the Revolution or?
I don't know. I mean, in principle, it would work for the Revolution, but you would have to. I don't know how you would zero on the center line. So I guess you could do an offset. I have to think about that, Dave. I've never really considered using it for the Revolution.
Yeah, and here's I'm just going to throw this out there, Bob. It might be something for you to think about. But like I said, this is kind of a tricky for me since I keep my laptop too far away. But if you had, like on my Gatton CNC, I used just a piece of aluminum angle, you know,
right.
as my probe plate or whatever. So you have a kind of a good flat spot right there on top of the tailstock, you know, those two little pieces. So you could set something there. You would just need to know the distance from there to the center of that.
I set it up on the KL with my 4th axis that I have. I know how far it is to the top of the headstock, and I just bounce off of that and have an offset. But that's a great idea.
And see, on my Gatton, I use that, you know, it has that aluminum tailstock, and I know it has that good flat surface there.
Yep.
And I always zero off of that, and I've already figured out the number down to the center of the thing.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
That might just be something a little easier, especially if you add that probe where you could do it, because that's a better, flatter place to try to catch the 0 right there. Let me see. I put my glasses on so I can read my own writing here. All right, we've already talked about that one. And
couldn't you going back to that? Couldn't you just on with the Kerbal stuff that I'm using? I'm currently using BCNC on my regular CNC. But couldn't you run a ground to the metal on the tailstock and then go right off of that?
Yeah, you could run 2 clips.
Yeah,
you might be able to do that because that's a set distance.
Yeah, be something to play with.
No, actually,
I know what I'm doing.
I think the main thing is it's not that we're anti-probes. It's just that we never use them. Really, I mean, we just started using them on our production machines because it's easier for the guy. But I've always used a business card. Bring it down to where it barely touches, and I know my business card's 20 thousandths. I drop it and go. So I've always thought probes were kind of a pain in the butt. You got to go plug them in, store them, whatever. But I like the idea for the Revolution to get it because it would solve one of the things that's really difficult, especially if I could put it in the post processor or build it into the basic cam. So I like it.
Bob, there used to be
Keith, you look like you wanting to say something there, buddy.
No, this is an ongoing issue as we try to do what is it? Value added for our customer. And we're so used to looking at things or doing things in a certain way. It doesn't matter to a certain extent what a customer expects or wants because we've already got this mindset, this is what we're going to do. And that whole thing about a probe, we've been talking about, XYZ probe.
Yep.
It's something we just haven't done, but it's something customers find value in. So that's what needs to be driving us rather than what we're used to doing. That's all I was going to
Well-
say. This is a sermon. Bob hears a lot.
Yeah, he's my mentor.
No,
Keeps me going.
no, I'm not.
Okay, I'm going
there
to
you-
try to hit you with some questions that I thought of as I was out there playing around with this morning. Like I said, when I was doing this in the cam, I grabbed your image and put it in there, and then I wanted to do another one on this side. Okay, is there a way to do a copy and paste? I see that when you go up there to at the top, there's a thing that says copy and paste, or I guess it says copy and cut or something, whatever it says.
Yeah.
But I couldn't figure out a way because I couldn't get it to do anything. So I thought, well, I guess I just have to bring it in again and scale it again and then move it to the other place so I can put it on the other side.
Yep, I would agree with that. Yeah, that's one of the things that people, I think would be really cool is once you make it, can I just copy it and paste it? But the way the code is written, that's going to be difficult. But I'm not saying it's not doable. It's going to be a difficult.
Okay. Now again, let me also say that as I'm talking about these things I'd love to have, I realize that VCarve Pro is $699 and this is free.
Yes.
So I'm not expecting anything too fancy, but I was just curious. I thought, well, maybe the thing does it. I just not holding my mouth right or something. I don't know.
No, there's a lot that it doesn't do. And, people, Keith, he comes into my office and he says, what I want to be able to click and just draw a shape, like a spline. Well, I can never say the word Bezier or Butnier or something.
Bezier.
Thank you. That one, right? The fancy curves, right? But that's hard to do the way it's written because it's written to take a shape that it is predefined and then take the data and make that shape. But as I learn, maybe I'll be able to pull some of that off because I would love for you to be able to make a profile shape and then turn it into a rotating G-code file, right? So that you could start off with the generic shape that you wanted for your lamp before you put the other date on it. But it'd probably take a while. I mean, I wish there was another me that could do this stuff.
Or another lifetime.
Yeah. Or another lifetime would be nice too.
Yeah. Of course, if I'm going to talk about copy and paste, another thing that would be nice would be able to mirror something, I guess. But tell me what the invert button does. Does that flip things around, or because I hadn't
on just the rectangle?
Well, no, like if you put text and then on the sender at the top of that document box, there's an invert button somewhere.
There is? Okay.
On sender.
Do you see it?
Sender.
I think maybe it's in the cam. I'm sorry, it's in the cam part.
So in the cam, there's an invert for the rectangle, and I can show you what that does real quick if you want to do the screen.
Okay, because I was hitting it earlier just to see what it would do, and I couldn't tell that it did anything.
This is a Keith request, right? So go ahead, share that screen.
Okay.
Screen. So I think what you're talking about is in the rectangle. So if you draw a rectangle, you can invert the radius, right? So if I create it with inverted radius, it just means that it turns it around like this. Whereas if I do not have that rectangle inverted, then it just creates regular rounds, right? So how signs.
Okay, now are you hitting the button that's in the document box up there in the upper right?
This selects it or deselects it, right? So if I wanted to delete it, I can click here and just say delete. So that gets rid of it. You can do the same thing by clicking on it and then hitting delete.
Right.
If I go up here and say I want to do a rectangle, right? And this is the center of it, and let's do it 80 by 100, and I'll make I will make those like 12. and I'll just create that. And that makes the rounds 12, right? So that's this one. Okay, so if I do another one, and I will make it a little bit smaller, 60 and 30, and then I'll keep that as a 5, but I'll invert the radius, and you'll see that it puts that inside. Right, so you have the inverted radius. So that's what the invert is. That's the only invert that I know of.
Okay.
So,
I was thinking,
but I like the idea of a mirror function because that can come in handy sometimes.
okay, now I'm looking
You're
at
never
the,
going to sleep again, Bob.
What's that?
I said you're never going to get to sleep again.
Well, that's cool. I mean, no, I enjoy the challenges, but I want to put in the things that most people want.
yeah, see, I was talking about if you look over on the upper right-hand corner of that screen where it says document, see there's a box that says invert.
Oh, okay. Well, let me show you how that works. So let's say I just have this one selected, right? And if I invert it, it will take that one off and select the other one.
Oh, okay. That's what it
So,
does.
or I can select all, or I can select none.
Okay.
Now, where that comes in handy is if I delete, well, I got to select them all and then delete. But if I bring in something, I don't know if I can find anything really quick here. Desktop, I should be more organized here. I thought I had one that was called test files.
I should, while you're looking for that, I'm going to mention real quick, if anybody's got a question for Bob or Keith, just put them in the comments there. And if you would, put a Q in front of them so we'll know it's a question. And Ryan will be tagging those, and we'll be, we won't let them leave till they answer all of them.
So I have this eagle that I created, and now you can see that it has a lot of features in it down here if I scroll through, right?
Yeah.
So if I just wanted to, find one of them, like, see that turned red there, right? But if if that's the one or two that I wanted to do, then I could do invert, and I could select everything else but those two, right? So it's meant for, I think, I didn't write this part, but I think it was meant for to do more complicated. So you can see I inverted that now.
Right.
You can see
Okay.
that's not selected, or if I invert now, it will go the opposite way. So that's the only
Okay.
selected.
Okay.
Now I
Okay.
can basically delete that or not include that in my toolpath if I did it right, but I just didn't. So let's see if I can find another one. I know there's going to be something that turns red, but there's a lot of, there we go. So I could take this now and I could not include that in my toolpath if I wanted to. So that's their way of kind of taking care of that.
Okay.
And I liked it. I mean, I didn't at first, it was kind of clunky, but once you get used to it, I mean, once you put a lot of pictures and stuff on here, I can, I don't want to do a toolpath, or I want one on that, and it selects it. And now I can go ahead and create my toolpath for that, right? So it really comes in handy as far as, because you can select it over here, but it gets kind of for bigger shapes. I mean, as long as you stay in there, but if I want to just get, that part, it's easy enough. But when I get into here, it gets a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Like the right one. So.
Alrighty.
But again, I'm open to improvements if there's a different way of doing it.
Yeah, and again, I guess we should remind people that you didn't start this from scratch. You've taken the open builds stuff and kind of customizing it for the BobsCNC stuff.
So what I've really done for the most part, if you took open builds, you would find that, well, let me get rid of this first. You would find that theirs has the text, the circle, and the rectangle. And if you opened up the rectangle, it was just a rectangle. So Keith said, can we add radiuses? And I want to do inverted radiuses. So I added that. And I added centers for all of these. But the star, the ellipse, the triangle, the line, or the grid is not in the basic cam at this point. So the grid, even though it's named grid here, is different. This grid, you can basically create your own little spoil board layout, right, with measurements if you wanted to, right, that fast, and you can just create the G code. So that was a feature that, because people want to put a grid on their spoil board to lay it out. So that was just a way to do that really fast. So I added those features, and then I made it to where you could do millimeters or inch, and you can see now my spoil board's way down here. So it doesn't work when you switch units, but if you switch units now, it's the 15 by 18, and then if I do a grid, hopefully it will be a little bit more representative of the inches. So
right,
it doesn't switch over.
And of course, the really nice thing you did is for the BobsCNC customers is with the settings, they can pick which machine they have.
Yeah. So to show off that a little bit, I would need to go to the Revolution, because it just has a list of our machines, and it just pre-populates those. And I got rid of a whole bunch of other stuff that would probably confuse newer customers, but I did leave, you could add starting and ending G codes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I left that there, right? But I wanted to make it to where you could just pick your machine and it would be set up. So if I go to the Revolution, it already saves it, and it's a little bit different now because now it's on the center line. But now if I write text, and I'll just try to do it really quick here, and then I select that text and I give it a project diameter of like 160. I don't want to do that. We're in inches, Bob. We'll do 6 inches, and let's say it's 18 inches long, right? It will draw a cylinder. And then when I create the G code, if I put I guess I have to create one first. And then I'll select a bit. We'll do it with the 16th. We'll just take the default values. And then I calculate the G code. It should add it to the, well, it won't do it today. Huh. Isn't that the way that goes?
It's shy.
All right. Did you hit the generate G code over there?
Well, I thought I did. Let me try that again, because
That one.
now I've really froze it up. So it's saying generate G code. I don't know if it's because I have something running in the background or not, but well, that's not really a good sign, is it?
Keeps you humble.
Yeah. I don't know what it did. It does that. Generate G code. There we go. Okay.
There you go.
And then it puts it on the cylinder, and you can get rid of, the document and that, so that you can see what it's going to look like on the surface, right? And you can see that if you look at it from here, it's actually on the surface. And the nice thing is, if I said, dang it, I'm in a 5-inch circle, I could just change that to 5 and generate G code, and it will regenerate it for me, right? And put it down on there. And the other thing that you'll notice is it has a top line and a bottom line. That's for the size circle you get, that would be the very top, which will match up with this line in the back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you wrap it, that's your piece of paper size that you could put it on. So
Right.
that's really what I wanted. I wanted our Revolution customers to have a way that they didn't have to buy the Vectric software to be able to do the 2.5D. So
Right. And like I said, to me, it was nice being able to just go up there and click settings and then go, okay, I've got the Revolution. And because I would have had to go on and look up all
Right.
those specs and stuff. And I'm like, he's got it where it just fills it in right here. So that makes it really nice. But you do have an other too, where you can,
right. So you can make
Use
up
it.
your own machine.
yeah, use it on your own. So, all right, we are right at the top of the hour. I'm going to, we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to ask Bob Keith some tough questions.
Yes. He's been awful quiet over here.
Okay.
Are you ready, Keith?
Oh, no.
All right, we'll be right back
ahead.
right after this break.
Okay.
Hey guys and gals, I hope you're enjoying the show, and if so, let me tell you about a few ways you can help support the show, and some of them don't even cost you anything. First off, you can hit the thumbs up button, and if you're not already subscribed, click the subscribe button. Both of those things don't cost a penny and really help the YouTube analytics. Another great way to help support the show is to send me a YouTube super chat. You can do that by clicking on the $sign at the bottom of the live chat window. And finally, and probably the easiest way, is to buy me a coffee. There is a buy me a coffee link down below in the description. And that is just a few easy ways you can help support the show. I really appreciate every single one of you being here watching. So let's get back at it. All right, real quick
I
before
didn't
we...
have time to run away.
Real quick, yeah, you had your chance, Keith.
Yeah.
Real quick before we ask Keith the tough questions, I meant to show this last week and I forgot, but if you ever, Sunday comes around and you go, oh, shucks, I forgot to watch the Hobby CNC with Dave show. Where can I find it? All you got to do is go to my website at davegatton.com, come up here to the top. It says Hobby CNC with Dave. Click on that, and there you will see all the shows we've done so far here.
You can even binge watch.
You can binge watch. That's right. Kind of like what I've been doing with the Bob Shop Talk thing. All right, Keith, I got some questions for you, buddy.
Okay.
I guess since you work with your best friend there and he's a CNC guy, I'm assuming, I've heard you say in those shop talks that you're a woodworker. So what kind of CNCs do you have in your shop? What do you have?
Well, I started with an E3. Then I went to a E4. Then I went to a KL733 because I wanted a larger format. There's some stuff I was experimenting with in Vetric. I wanted to make an oversized flag, waving surface.
I've seen that flag.
The only problem is it's too big for my garage. You've got to have room to move around the machine. And so we came out with the Evolution 5, which is 2 by 4 foot. And that gives me all the cutting area I need. So that's what I'm using now. I've never used the Revolution as yet. My son has made all kinds of stuff, but I haven't used that one yet.
Okay.
In fact, that was the first contact I had with CNCs ever.
Okay, awesome. Well, I've seen the flag you're talking about. It was in one of your shop talk videos, I believe. So what is that your favorite CNC project, or if not, what is the favorite thing you've made?
Well, let's see. I just got done. My sister-in-law is a church musician in a little town not too far from Las Vegas, and I've been fascinated with figuring out how to make flowing models with Vetric, or how to manipulate the models that Vetric has. And anyway, they have a real simple model called an open book. And I was doing some research on A Mighty Fortress Is Our God. And I found a handwritten copy, supposedly Luther's own, one of his original copies of the hymn with handwritten music. And so Vetric gives you the ability to do bitmap tracing, and then with node editing, you can clean up all those lines. I was able to replicate medieval music, and I put this thing together. I gave a copy to Pam. My wife has one. My sister-in-law hasn't got one yet because, well,
because he's a perfectionist, right?
Well, no, she is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Okay. It's really pretty cool.
But anyway, it's that kind of stuff I really like.
The notes and stuff follow the curve of the page,
Yeah.
right? And he
Mhm.
got it at the right depth using that book project by Vetric. But
All right, so you did that with VCarve Pro then?
I'm using Aspire right now.
Aspire, okay, good.
I started with desktop, then I went to Pro, and now I've got Aspire.
Okay, and Keith just made me think of another question that I thought of today, and then I guess I didn't write it down. But and I don't know if you even want to talk about this, and if you don't, that's okay. But as far as future plans for BobsCNC, do you think that you will ever do a Revolution 2? With something, maybe something at a half inch or something that's a little bigger?
Oh, I'm more than sure that we're going to be doing something like that. It's not on the drawing pages right now. I know it's it's revolving in Bob's brain because he's about 5 projects down the line designing in his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He never stops, right?
No, and he never. I don't have to ever worry about retiring. As long as if I wake up in the morning, I'm going to work.
It's like the Hotel California.
You can't leave. Yeah. But anyway, yes, this summer we've got some really neat stuff we're working on right now, and we're prototyping. And I think by this summer we're going to have some really exciting product stuff to announce.
Does John have that plate in his office?
Which plate?
The one for the. You keep asking him another question. I'll be back in just a second.
Okay.
Let me take a break and do a quick shout out here. Thank you, JR. He hit, I guess that's a super chat, or I guess that's what it is. Thank you, JR. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Let me find my Keith questions here.
All right, I got a question for him while we're waiting for Bob. Oh, Bob's back. Oh, he doesn't have his headphones on.
All right, now wait a minute. What kind of plywood is that?
Well, that's
steel plywood.
Yeah.
But it has a rounded edge so that you could make a pass-through chuck.
Ah.
Okay. So if you could make a pass-through chuck, and that's got maybe about a 6x6, so you could put pretty much a great big post in there. And if you made kind of like a KL sized where you had a pass-through chuck on both sides, you could take your 12-foot 6x6 and put your gecko climbing up with some roses or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, just keep indexing it down. Yeah, I like that. I like the way you think, Bob.
That's way, but that's not even on.
That'll be on next week.
That's not even on the list of projects. That's in prototype stage still. So
that's in prototype.
Yeah. Well, that is a prototype.
Well,
you helped me buy that.
Well, I know it was expensive.
But anyway, so there is if it keeps getting more and more popular, so that not everybody's afraid of rotating axis, then that one will be, and it may even be a 4th axis because we're coming out with better software by the time I get it done. So
right. Okay, well, I know we've got some audience questions to get to, but I've got one more question for you, Bob. And I thought of it today as I was out there piddling around, and I'm betting you're probably going to come up with the answer that I think you will. But are you the type of person that if you went to wherever your computer is, whether it be there at BobsCNC or maybe at your shop at home or your home office or something like that, do you have stuff you've designed and then it's just never, you put it to the side? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. So to me, I love engineering. Okay. I mean, as a matter of fact, at John Deere one time, they had one of those, fancy where all of us managers had to go, and we had to answer or ask 2 questions. And one of them was, what do you like? I love engineering. That's all I ever want to do. I don't like doing anything else. I might try hang gliding this summer. That's different. But a good engineer, in my mind, you work on a project and then you get stumped because, believe it or not, it's actually hard to do good engineering work. And then one day you'll wake up in the middle of the night, or your buddy will show you a picture that solves a problem for you, and you'll go, and then you can get a little bit further. right? And so, yeah, I have projects all over. I mean, I will be dead and still not have them all done. I mean, it just, there's too many things you want to do. So sure.
Okay, that was exactly the answer I would expect from you.
Don't you?
Because I do. And
Okay.
in fact, I was thinking today, I need to drag out my old computer that's got my CAD software on it. And I've got some stuff that's, you'd be surprised how many times I've designed something completely, full assemblies.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know whether something shiny comes along or, I change my mind about it or that wouldn't sell or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think, you've kind of inspired me with this whole revolution thing, playing around with that. I'm thinking, well, maybe I need to pull one of those things out and dust them off and play around with it. Not so much to sell because I'm tired of working, but just to play with myself.
What's really cool about BobsCNC is I get to do all the design work and play, but Keith and the rest of the team take care of, the manuals and the, putting it in boxes. We got to get a video of our factory and how we do things. But yeah, I mean, there's 13 of us, 12 of us, 13. I never can remember.
I think it's 11.
Okay, 11.
Yeah,
so
I think it's 11 of us.
Who'd we fire? Me?
Well, I was going to wait until after that. I'll let you know.
Okay, I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
well,
This is my last one. Okay.
Well, the sign has already changed.
I thought so, yeah.
All right, let's take some questions. Brian's got a few of them queued up here. Let's hit some from the audience here. Troy Pritchard asked, "What is the longest piece of stock the Revolution can carve, and is it big enough to do like table legs?"
It's got a 24-inch cutting area at 6.4 inches in diameter, right? And the reason that is true is because VCarve Desktop has a 24 by 24 limit, right? And so we wanted to make the diameter times pi, which is about 6.4 inches, it comes up to that 24 inches. However, with the pass-through that Jonathan designed, if you have like a pool cue or something that's round, you can
baseball bat.
Baseball bat. You can extend that out, but you can still only carve on 24 inches of it. I did make my wife a walking stick because we do a lot of hiking. And I did that in two 2-foot chunks. And because you have a perfect center line, I just drilled a hole there, stuck a metal screw in, and bolted it together with some glue. So it's a 4-foot tall Celtic walking stick that was made in 2 pieces. But yeah, so if you have the pass through, you could do something 5 or 6 foot long as it wasn't too heavy. If you don't have the pass through, it's 2 foot.
Yeah.
Now,
so as long as it's not a fat table leg, you could do it.
You're talking about that 2 inches. So theoretically, you could do 26 inches, right? But you could only carve on the 24 part of it. So,
right, gotcha. Okay, Clyde. Well, I think we've already answered this because you showed where to
go out and see the wiki or shoot the help desk an email, and I'll send you a shortcut to it. But pretty simple process.
Okay. Harry Ragland says, in case of a broken bit, how would you handle the start from here knowing that you would have to rehome and touch blade? I think we talked about that a little bit earlier too.
So right now you would definitely have to do the, for the Revolution, you would have to set the 0 up again. And I think with the Universal G-Code Center, you could do the start from here. Hopefully I'll get that in the basic sender soon. But I like Dave's idea on the touch plate. And if Ryan's idea pulls off where we could just put a couple of clips, one on the tail stock and one on the bit, and have a known location, that would be good too. So.
Yeah.
But I think that'll be in the future too. So hold on for that.
Alrighty. Jerry Brown says, I draw a lot of big projects in left half scale and use the mirror to make it full design using mirror and V-carve. Yeah, I do that as well, Jerry. So that's why I was asking about if there might be a mirror function
Yep.
coming in
And
the
I do that
future.
a lot too in space claim. So yeah, it's a cool function to have.
Yeah. Bob Heltbrudel says, do they do the laser cutting in-house or send it out?
We have six lasers. We do all of our laser work in-house. We sub out very, very little, a few machine parts. What do you call that thing that sticks on the other side of the revolution on the tailstock? The center point thing.
Oh.
I don't know what it's called. That is subbed out.
The live center?
Live center. Thank you. Thanks for helping me out.
Hey, I'm just here.
He knows what it's called.
Yeah.
The live center we have manufactured, and
Not much else.
that's about it for the revolution. So other than the bolts and nuts and the controller and stuff, electronics, we do not make stepper motors in house.
Okay, Rob Hampton asks, could the revolution be changed to use the gantry on a standard wood lathe?
No, the cutting forces on a wood lathe are tremendous, right? Compared to because your bit's doing the work. However, my dad has a CNC machine on his little lathe that I built for him, and I've often wondered if that would be a good product. So yeah, if you think it would be, tell Dave it would be an awesome product. Because let's say that you had your own lathe that your old Sears and Roebuck or maybe a Grizzly or Atlas or whatever lathe. Would you be interested in a 2-axis? Because really you would just need an X and a Z, right? And the bit would go along and make your profile for you. So you could really just do a 2-axis CNC, but it would have to handle the tool loads of that bit. I mean, that happens on a lathe pretty fast, right? It's spinning pretty quick. So, so that would be one of the other projects. I'd made one for my dad, because he's special, right? He gets special treatment, but we don't have one for production. But it's a 2-axis machine.
Okay, I think the last question here, B. Todd Cox says, can you use BCNC instead of UGS for the revolution?
Yes, you can use any gerbil sender that you would like to use.
Okay, I'm glad you knew that because I didn't even know for sure what BCNC is. I've heard people say they use it, but I guess
I really like it.
It's just a sender.
It's really difficult, I think, for a person that's not well versed in Linux to get it installed. Right now, maybe they fixed that recently. I don't want to pick on it, but I finally did get it installed, and it actually works really well. But we need something that's pretty simple to get going.
That's what I use on my on my Raspberry Pi setup is BCNC.
So did you find it difficult to install, or are you just a computer guru anyway?
No. It was part of a Raspberry Pi image that I downloaded when I did that, and
okay.
So it was already on the. It was pretty simple when I did that.
Okay.
Okay, and JR from Trade Skillers Anonymous says, thanks, Bob and Keith, for sharing tonight, and to Dave and Ryan for providing the platform.
Hey, that's what we're here for. Dave, of course, for having us.
Well, like I said, you can come back anytime. I know I'm going to keep having more and more questions the more I use this thing, and probably some feature requests as well. So
well, now you know how to put them on there, right? So.
But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm going to be doing a glue up, and I'm going to try to. I'm not going to max it out, but I got some 2x6s. I think I'm going to try to cut something maybe about 12 inches long by, and then cut them down to 4 inches wide, and then glue them together. So I'll have a 4.5 by 4.5 square by 12 inches long. Put on there, try to do a long carve. I did it in it's a 3D thing, so I had to do it in Vectric VCarve Pro.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a total of about 6 hours runtime, according to that. Now, a lot of times it takes even longer than that when you run them. But I got to say, and I'm not just saying this because you sent me one of these things, because, me, or if you do know me, you know that I'll say good or bad, no matter what, when I'm talking about something. But I'm having a blast with this thing, and I'm going to be perfectly honest. I had no doubt as your abilities as an engineer, because I can tell you're a smart dude.
Stubborn anyway.
But, and I'm a plywood guy, but still, when you look at that plywood, it's, the thinner stuff, and I'm like, man, I hope this thing is really going to work. But then when I started putting it together, I'm like, holy cow, Bob's right. It's all in the engineering. This thing's stout, and it'll do. I mean, everything's got limits, but I've done some stuff, again, because I'm getting used to this Arduino thing and the metric versus inches and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, I probably should have went a little lighter on that. And then I'm thinking, well, it's doing okay. I'll just let it go.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed, especially with that little Makita. It's doing a great job. And I'm just tickled to death to be able to play with this thing and, make some stuff.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I mean, I think it's a fun machine. I don't, I like making machines. So really, when I make a machine, I'm pretty much done, right? It's really a chore for me. But John is the one that's really does phenomenal things on our in-house. He's always trying to make projects and stuff. But he's the one that has the experience with the Revolution. Jonathan is the one that actually came up with the wizard idea. And I noticed on your video, you were taking pretty light passes compared to what we do. For pine, we do it all in one pass since it's a side cut. So we just take out the whole quarter in one pass all the way down. So try that, but see how it works for you.
Okay. Alrighty. I guess we're all out of audience questions. Ryan, do you have anything else?
Well, I just right before the show, I actually put out my video on the Revolution.
Oh, cool.
And it more of a time lapse of putting it together and stuff, and just some yapping at the end of it with my thoughts on it and stuff. And I haven't been able to run it yet. I was waiting for some bits to show up, and they are probably out in my mailbox now. I'm very impressed with it was a joy to put together. I like doing Legos and stuff like that, and it reminded me of that type of a process. It was very,
if
very
you're one of
enjoyable.
the kind of people that don't like to do assembly work, then it's probably not the right kit for you. So,
No, especially with 853 pieces of hardware.
Yeah. And how many pieces of wood? Or is that the total?
92.
Okay.
Are you sure? Count them again, Ryan.
Write that down. Yeah.
You're going to have to count them again, Ryan. I think there was more than that.
Oh, come on.
For crying out
I might have
loud.
missed something.
Yeah, we get that. Some comments about how I got money in stock in screw companies and that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
that's what's needed if you're going to do it out of plywood, right? You gotta trust that puppy together. So.
But
Yeah,
I would absolutely encourage any of our viewers out there that are watching tonight, if you've already got a CNC and you want to get into rotary stuff, this is the perfect thing, because it's a standalone thing. So you're not tying up your CNC like Bob mentioned earlier. When I do it on my Gatton CNC, I've done it enough that it's not that big a deal, but it's like once you get it set up, it's like, okay, now I'm going to leave that on there for a couple of weeks and just run those kind of projects, it's, but this is just standalone, and, it's just so much nicer to not tie up a CNC when you need to run other stuff by having this. So very cool, great engineering. And,
well, thank you.
I'm having a blast playing with it. I really am. So I guess we'll get out of here.
Exciting.
We're probably past Keith's bedtime. I know we're past mine.
We were past that before it started.
Yeah.
So,
But he comes in at like what, 5,
4.
4? Yeah, I mean,
Oof.
he's already done a day's work by the time I get here. Or at
holy
least that's
cow.
what he tells me, because I've actually never seen him working. So,
Huh.
but
Maybe
does-
that's where he's getting his naps. I don't know.
yeah, that's probably so.
Yeah, thanks a bunch. Yeah. Give my secrets away.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to get out of here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I appreciate you. Thanks again, JR, for the super chat. And if anybody else has hit the buy me a coffee thing, I hadn't got the notifications yet, but I usually get those after the show. So I'll just go ahead and say it now. If you did one of those, I appreciate you. That'll help keep the lights on and the show going. So appreciate it much. All right, we're going to get out of here. Everybody have a great night, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.